after interviewing tons and tons of witnesses to say that Mike Bickle, the former leader of IHOPKC, had actually was involved in spiritual abuse of over 17 people over multiple decades.
Mike Bickle once stood as one of the most recognized names in modern Christian ministry. For decades, he led a worldwide prayer movement, inspired thousands of followers, and built a powerful spiritual platform. But everything changed when shocking allegations, investigations, and painful testimonies began to surface. What followed was a dramatic fall that few could have imagined. Now, many believe the final chapter of his ministry has been written, bringing an end to a legacy that once seemed untouchable. How did a leader who inspired so many reach a point where people are saying goodbye forever? Join us to find out. Global Prayer Movement. Michael Leroy Bickle was born on July 17, 1955 in Kansas City, Missouri. As a young boy, he loved sports and showed great talent as an athlete. One of his biggest dreams was to become a professional football quarterback. He enjoyed competition and worked hard to improve his skills. At that stage of his life, sports seemed to be the path he would follow. Everything began to change when he attended a Fellowship of Christian Athletes student conference in Colorado. During that event, Bickle experienced a strong commitment to the Christian faith at the age of 15. The conference had a deep effect on him and caused him to think seriously about his future. Instead of focusing only on sports, he became increasingly interested in serving God through ministry. Another influence on his life was professional football player Roger Staubach, the famous quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Bickle admired Staubach not only for his success on the field, but also for his dedication to his Christian beliefs. Seeing someone place faith above personal achievement encouraged him to pursue a life centered on spiritual growth and leadership. As the years passed, Bickle became deeply involved in Christian ministry. He devoted himself to teaching, prayer, and helping others grow in their faith. Throughout his ministry, he often spoke about experiences that he believed were special encounters with God. These included claims of hearing the audible voice of God and being taken to heaven on 2 occasions. Such accounts attracted attention from many people and became a well-known part of his ministry. However, these experiences later became the subject of debate and disagreement after his confession to misconduct. For many years, Bickle served as a pastor at Metro Christian Fellowship. He worked to build a strong church community and focused on helping people strengthen their relationship with God. In 1999, he stepped away from his pastoral role and began a new ministry called the International House of Prayer in Kansas City, often known as IHOPKC. The ministry quickly became known for its commitment to continuous prayer and worship. Beginning on September 19, 1999, prayer meetings were held around the clock. Day and night, people gathered to worship and pray. This non-stop schedule became one of the most recognizable features of the organization. Many believers were drawn to the idea of maintaining constant prayer and devotion. As interest in the ministry grew, IHOPKC expanded its activities. It established a Bible college known as the International House of Prayer University. The ministry also offered internship programs designed to train and mentor young adults who wanted to deepen their faith and prepare for ministry work. At its largest point, the organization included about 2,500 full-time staff members, students, and interns. These educational programs and internships later closed after Bickle confessed to misconduct. The ministry gained international recognition and attracted followers from many parts of the world. People were especially interested in Bickle's teachings about prayer, prophecy, fasting, and Christian beliefs concerning the end times. His emphasis on developing a passionate relationship with Jesus became a central theme of his message. He regularly encouraged believers to place God at the center of their lives and pursue spiritual growth through prayer and devotion. One of the most successful events connected to IHOPKC was the annual One Thing Conference. Held at the Kansas City Convention Center The gathering brought together thousands of young adults each year. The conference featured worship music, teaching sessions, and messages focused on prayer, evangelism, and Christian end-times beliefs. In 2010, attendance reached approximately 25,000 young adults. The event remained popular for many years before its final conference took place during the last week of 2018. Bickle's teaching ministry covered several important subjects. He often spoke about prayer and fasting, emphasizing their role in strengthening faith. He also taught extensively on prophecy and Christian eschatology. Another major focus of his teaching was the Song of Songs. He interpreted the book as a picture of the relationship between God and the community of believers. In addition, he frequently discussed God's spiritual purposes for Israel and encouraged Christians to pray for the spiritual salvation of Jewish people. At one point in his ministry journey, Bickle was associated with John Wimber's Vineyard movement. The connection lasted for a period of time before he eventually left the movement in 1996 and continued developing his own ministry direction. Beyond ministry work, Bickle entered public discussion during the 2016 presidential election when he endorsed Ted Cruz. This endorsement reflected his willingness to speak publicly about issues he considered important. But what brought him down? What was his final sentence? Let's find out. The growing controversies. Throughout his years in ministry, Mike Bickle gained a large following and became a well-known figure in charismatic Christian circles. His teachings on prayer, prophecy, worship, and the end times attracted thousands of supporters from around the world. However, alongside his success came growing criticism and controversy. Over time, questions about his teachings, leadership style, ministry practices, and relationships with other religious leaders became a major part of the public discussion surrounding his work. One of the most debated parts of Bickle's ministry involved his views on prophecy and prophetic ministry. Supporters believed his teachings encouraged people to seek a deeper relationship with God and to pay attention to spiritual guidance. Critics, however, questioned some of the claims and practices connected to prophetic experiences. They expressed concerns about how prophetic messages were presented and how much influence they carried within the ministry. Additional criticism came from the actions of several ministers who were closely associated with Bickle during the 1980s and 1990s. Among the most discussed were Bob Jones and Paul Cain. Although neither man remained directly involved with Bickle's ministry for several years afterward, their scandals continued to raise questions about leadership, accountability, and judgment within the broader ministry network. Even after these controversies became widely known, Bickle continued to speak positively about Bob Jones and often credited him with playing an important role in the events that eventually led to the founding of the International House of Prayer in Kansas City. This decision drew criticism from some observers who believed the serious allegations connected to Jones should have been addressed more openly. Former leaders and critics also raised concerns about what they described as the misuse of prophetic authority. Some alleged that Bickle's position as a respected prophetic leader gave him significant influence over followers. According to these critics, ministry members sometimes felt pressure to accept leadership decisions without question. They claimed that disagreement could be viewed as resistance to God's direction, creating an environment where independent opinions were discouraged. As controversies increased, many people began examining the history of IHOPKC more closely. Questions emerged regarding the supernatural stories and prophetic experiences that had helped shape the ministry's identity from the beginning. Former associates and investigators reviewed many of these accounts and claimed that some contained inconsistencies or historical details that did not fully match earlier records. These concerns caused some supporters to reconsider the ministry's foundational narrative. Another issue frequently raised by critics involved organizational oversight. For many years, independent observers argued that IHOPKC operated within a closely connected structure that lacked strong outside accountability. Concerns were expressed about how misconduct allegations were handled and whether independent review processes were sufficient. These discussions became even more intense as later scandals brought greater public attention to the ministry. Theological disagreements also played a major role in the criticism directed toward Bickle. His teachings often focused heavily on end-times events, fasting, spiritual devotion, and themes connected to the new Apostolic Reformation movement. While many followers embraced these teachings, some mainstream evangelical leaders questioned certain interpretations and doctrinal positions. These differences led to ongoing debates about theology and ministry practice. A significant challenge emerged in 1990 when Kansas City pastor Ernest Gruen released a report examining what he believed were problematic teachings and practices within the Kansas City Fellowship Ministry. The report generated considerable discussion and increased public scrutiny. In response, Bickle chose to place himself under the oversight of John Wimber and joined the Association of Vineyard Churches. This move was intended, in part, to address concerns that had been raised and to bring greater accountability to the ministry. Looking back on that period, Bickle later acknowledged that not every criticism should have been dismissed. He admitted that some concerns, particularly those related to pride, contained elements of truth. At the same time, he maintained that other accusations were unfair or inaccurate. His comments reflected a more balanced view of a difficult chapter in the ministry's history. Reports later suggested that Bickle and Gruen had reached a place of reconciliation and forgiveness. However, other accounts indicated that complete agreement may never have been achieved. As a result, questions surrounding that period continued to be discussed by those familiar with the ministry's history. Before his eventual dismissal following misconduct allegations, Bickle continued to receive support from several respected charismatic Christian leaders. Their endorsements reflected the influence he maintained within many ministry circles for years. Bickle also faced criticism from the Anti-Defamation League because of statements they considered offensive toward Jewish people. The organization publicly challenged those remarks, adding another layer of controversy to an already complex public reputation. The scandal that brought him down. For many years, Mike Bickle was known as a respected Christian leader whose teachings on prayer, worship, and spiritual devotion attracted followers from around the world. He led a ministry that influenced thousands of people and built a reputation that lasted for decades. However, beginning in late 2023, a series of serious allegations dramatically changed the course of his life and ministry. On October 28, 2023, reports emerged accusing Bickle of violation abuse involving multiple women over a period of several decades. The allegations quickly gained widespread attention and created shock throughout the Christian community. The following day, the International House of Prayer in Kansas City announced that Bickle had been placed on administrative leave from all public ministry activities while an investigation was conducted. Initially, the ministry hired a law firm to oversee the investigation. However, concerns were raised about that decision, leading the organization to select a different Kansas City law firm to take charge of the process. As public attention continued to grow, many people waited to see what the investigation would uncover. A major development occurred on November 30, 2023, when a woman identified publicly as Jane Doe came forward with allegations against Bickle. She stated that the abuse took place between 1996 and 1999, beginning when she was 19 years old. At the time, Bickle was 42. Her account added further weight to the growing controversy and increased calls for a thorough examination of the accusations. Less than 2 weeks later, on December 12, 2023, Bickle acknowledged past misconduct. At the same time, he denied some of the allegations that had been made against him. His admission marked a significant moment in the unfolding situation, as it was the first public acknowledgement of wrongdoing connected to the claims. The consequences became even more serious on December 22nd. Following its internal review, IHOPKC announced that investigators had confirmed inappropriate behavior. As a result, the organization stated that it would immediately, formally, and permanently end its relationship with Bickle. The announcement brought an end to his long-time leadership connection with the ministry he had founded decades earlier. In February of 2024, additional allegations became public through a detailed account provided by Tammy Woods. According to her testimony, inappropriate conduct began during the 1980s when she was 14 years old, and Bickle was in his mid-20s. Her account described years of painful experiences and explained why she had waited until 2024 to speak publicly. Family members and a close friend reportedly provided information that supported portions of her account. The report also discussed efforts by Bickle to contact Woods after allegations became public in 2023. As investigations expanded, a much larger picture began to emerge. Independent investigators interviewed more than 210 individuals and reviewed over 6,000 documents. Among those interviewed were 32 people who identified themselves as victims or survivors. After examining the evidence, investigators concluded that at least 17 people had experienced violation, abuse, misconduct, or spiritual exploitation involving Bickle, dating back to the mid-1970s. The findings stated that the reported actions caused deep emotional, psychological, and spiritual harm to those affected. Investigators also reported that they found recurring patterns in the testimonies. According to their conclusions, multiple accounts contained similarities that were supported by additional evidence and overlapping statements from different individuals. The investigation further claimed that previous allegations had not always been handled properly. According to the report, there were instances where concerns were not adequately addressed, allowing misconduct allegations to remain unresolved for long periods. Investigators described what they believed was a pattern of institutional failures that allowed problems to continue without sufficient accountability. Particular attention was given to a program established in 1997 called Friends of the Bridegroom. The program involved young women, many of whom were 18 and 19 years old, making commitments to celibacy while serving in ministry activities. Investigators alleged that inappropriate relationships and conduct occurred within this setting. The report claimed that spiritual influence, personal attention, gifts, and other forms of interaction were used in ways that crossed appropriate boundaries. In February of 2025, a report released through a partnership involving independent investigators stated that 17 individuals had come forward with allegations of violation, abuse, or abusive misconduct involving Bickle. The report indicated that some of the alleged victims were minors at the time of the reported incidents. The impact of these revelations extended beyond the ministry itself. In March of 2025, survivors, including Tammy Woods, appeared before Missouri lawmakers to support legal reforms related to child violation abuse cases. Their testimony contributed to growing public discussion about accountability and legal protections for survivors. These efforts helped lead to the passage of Trey's Law in June of 2025. But what was his family like, and how did they handle this fallout? Family life and ministry success. While Mike Bickle became widely known for his ministry work, his family life remained an important part of his story. He is married to Diane Bickle, who has also been actively involved in the ministry for many years. Diane has dedicated much of her time to prayer and worship, supporting the work of the ministry while often staying away from the spotlight. Unlike her husband, she has generally chosen a quieter role, focusing on service rather than public attention. Together, Mike and Diane built a family centered on faith and personal values. They have 2 sons and are also grandparents to 6 grandchildren. Despite their involvement in a large ministry, they wanted their children to enjoy a normal upbringing. They worked hard to ensure that the demands and expectations that often come with ministry life did not become too heavy for their family. Their goal was to provide a balanced childhood where their children could grow and develop without feeling overwhelmed by public attention or ministry responsibilities. As Mike's influence in Christian circles grew, so did the reach of his ministry. Over the years, he became known not only as a pastor and teacher, but also as an author and conference speaker. These activities helped build both his reputation and his financial success. His estimated net worth has been reported at around $5 million, earned through several different sources connected to his ministry work. One important source of income came from his books, which focused on prayer, worship, and spiritual growth. They became popular in many Christian communities and supported his earnings over time. Public speaking also played a major role, with invitations to conferences and church events, where he shared teachings on faith, prayer, and spiritual devotion. Another significant part of his financial journey came through his leadership of the International House of Prayer in Kansas City. As the founder and longtime leader of the organization, he likely received compensation connected to his leadership responsibilities. The ministry itself was supported through donations, partnerships, conferences, and other ministry-related activities designed to support its mission and daily operations. Media and teaching resources also helped expand his reach. IHOPKC produced prayer sessions, worship content, and teaching materials that were shared with supporters around the world. Because Bickle played a central role in creating and delivering much of this content, these materials may have provided additional financial benefits through various forms of distribution and use. Large ministry events also contributed to the organization's growth. Conferences attracted thousands of attendees who came to participate in worship services and teaching sessions. These gatherings helped strengthen the ministry's influence and created opportunities through registrations, ministry resources, and event-related activities. Donations remained a major foundation of the ministry. Supporters gave financial contributions to help maintain prayer meetings, educational programs, outreach efforts, and other ministry activities. While these funds primarily supported the organization's mission, they also helped sustain its leadership structure and daily operations. In addition, Bickle's teachings and written materials became valuable ministry resources. His sermons, books, and educational content continued to reach audiences through different formats. These resources increased his influence and added to the overall value of the ministry he helped establish. What began as a respected ministry legacy eventually became overshadowed by allegations, investigations, and painful testimonies. The controversy transformed public perception of Mike Bickle and left a lasting mark on the ministry he spent decades building. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.